say it best when you say nothing at all.
That's Boyzone and When You Say Nothing at All with Ronan Keating. This is on FM 101.4 across West London. My name is Noel Bell and I'm here till 2 o'clock. And today we're now going to be speaking about careers, the issue of the big society and public sector cuts and contraction in the private sector. There's going to be a lot of listeners worried about their jobs and careers and job opportunities, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome Peter Ure, who's a corporate motivational speaker and management consultant. Peter, you're very welcome to the show.
Thanks, Noel.
Good to have you in, Peter. Now, Peter, there are a lot of people who'll be worried about their jobs if they're lucky enough to be in a job, or there'll be people who will be looking for opportunities. Apparently, graduate unemployment is at a record high, and I have sometimes been privy to discussions around positive thinking, where people will refer to a book by the Mr. McKennas and such like, who'll talk about, I can make you happy after you read this book, and I can get you on a positive plane to rectify whatever situation one is going through. Is that possible, or are we facing forces beyond the power of positive thinking?
It's an interesting subject, isn't it, Noel? Because at a personal level, I worked for a big American corporation for about 14 years. And during that period, towards the end of that period, I was very aware, because I was involved in the whole process, that my redundancy was imminent. It was an odd situation. During the sort of build-up to that time, I felt actually quite optimistic, and the corporation I was working for, a very, very substantial, an excellent employer, they gave us counselling in how to cope when we moved on, and a lot of that did revolve around keeping a positive mental attitude. That in itself, though, I think is only part of the equation. I think, yes, it does make sense to keep an optimistic and positive outlook, but once you're actually out and on your own and the outplacement process is finished, then you are going to have to deal with bitter reality. And I think it's important to blend together the power of positive thinking, or what you might call PMA, positive mental attitude, with some of the techniques, some of the really sort of grounded techniques in how to deal with real life problem solving. And I say this because I've been through it myself and recognise that PMA on its own, good as it is, isn't really enough. But the other is the realisation that once you're out of your corporation, and I think you and I have talked about this before, it slowly dawns on you just how much of your own identity, your very being, has been tied up with the workplace. It took me quite a long time to stop saying we in reference to my old employer. But what struck me is that whilst my employer was giving me advice on positive mental attitude, their own techniques for solving their own business problems were somewhat different, much more realistic. And I think there's a place for taking some of the core real-life business-solving technique and applying it to your own personal situation when you're looking for work or coping with not being in the workplace. And for me, and applying those techniques, I think that alongside your PMA work and keeping an optimistic glass half full attitude, I think three questions need to be answered by anybody who's in this position, and they are: where am I, where could I go, and how am I going to get there? And that's what an institutional employer would ask themselves.
The thing I get confused about is if there are so many people without jobs, and the level of new job creation is less than those, still less than the number seeking jobs. If everyone who's seeking a job applies PMA, will everyone get a job? Or is there just that there's going to be some people who will, by virtue of the scarcity of job opportunities, will not be able to be successful?
I think, in a way, you're answering your own question there. If there are only so many jobs and there are more people than will fill those conventional jobs, then the answer is obvious. They won't get filled. Part of what I'm suggesting here is that if you ask yourselves the questions, where am I, where could I go, and how will I get there, then you start to open up new avenues of opportunity for yourself. And the new model is that when the moment comes and you're told, you haven't made the cut, you will be taking a redundancy package, thank you, and best wishes along the way. It's at that point that you have to start considering new identities. I mean, the model I would use to make this more understandable is, if you look at the most successful musical acts, on a radio station, they've mutated, they've changed themselves. Madonna has had 4 or 5 different identities over the course of her musical career. You can think of many other groups that have done the same thing. And I think now, as individuals, we have to live in this modern, this age where we might have 3 or 4 different careers over our extended working life, and have to create 3 or 4 different personas for each of those periods of our employment. And I think that's the new reality. I think the idea that you'll be employed for life is long gone. So
is it that if there's a scarcity of job opportunities, are the people who become employed, if they're seeking work, having been made redundant or are coming out of college, are they the people who have adapted PMA in a better way than someone else, and that they're, as a result, more equipped with a positive attitude to get a job?
I think you've got to start with PMA as a base. If you allow any situation, the negative aspects of any situation, to get you down, then you're finished. The opening position is maintain a positive and optimistic attitude, and believe that the forces of the universe will, if you go with the flow, you're gonna, at some point you're gonna be okay. Don't panic. But the other side of this is that, from a Darwinian point of view, Darwin didn't say the strongest survive. He said those most able to adapt, those most able to respond to changes in conditions, are the most likely to survive. And I'm suggesting that getting to asking yourself key questions, being very self-aware about who you are and what your offer is in the current circumstances, gives you a better platform from which to reassess the offer that you're making in the workplace. And that is going to change on a regular basis. So I'm saying, A, keep a positive mental attitude at all times, but B, be prepared to continually evolve. And the technologies that are coming into our lives are coming so quickly now. We're perhaps not... we're sometimes taken aback by the speed with which these technologies can disrupt and completely rewrite entire industries. And those of us who've got the capacity to live with this very rapid degree of change are the ones who are going to ride each of the successive waves of economic change. So your question?
Yep, absolutely. And also, I mean, people listening will be thinking they might be in a job where they want to maybe develop their career, but they're just feeling, with all the public sector cutbacks that are on the way, they might be in a public sector job or in a private sector job where there's wage restraint, what would be your advice in terms of how to... Is it a case of someone being more proactive and taking more on in their current duties and with a view to expanding their role, given that most people just think it's good enough in a recession to have a job?
Okay. I'll go down a sort of practical steps sort of route to answer your question. And it's not an immediate answer to your question, but the absolutely foundation principle for managing your career, in my opinion, is radical self-awareness. You should be really sensitive, not only to other people around you, their wants and needs, but be and train yourself to be aware of the impression you are having on other people. That's critical. It might sound unusual, but there's a lot of research to say that heightened levels of self-awareness are the foundation for being able to chart your way through the development of your career, whether you're in the private or the public sector. I'd say there are 4 or 5 things that I think are vital, and alongside heightened levels of self-awareness is this phrase: quality of life is quality of communication. You are, to a certain extent, the connections that you make. So stay connected and stay sensitive. Look at the online networking tools like LinkedIn, Facebook, any of the job sites, and stay connected to people. I'll just go on a footballing trip for a moment. Brian Clough once said, "Nobody listens to what you say, but everybody remembers how you made them feel." And I think that's a foundation notion. The first, building blocks idea is be sensitive to the impact that you're having on other people. Second of all, I'd say always ask for help. Whether you're in a job and looking to progress, or whether you're out of a job and looking for new openings, ask. And one of the worst mistakes that you can make in the redundancy process is to allow hurt pride to steer you off course. I'd also say look at 2 different types of thinking: and versus or thinking. If you are to sketch out the perfect career or the perfect new job role, keep asking and questions. I want a job that gives me job satisfaction and good pay and access to work and time with my family. It's not always a trade-off, a good job or time with my family. So give yourself more options. And I'll just finish on these sort of ideas really are, at all times, whether career building or new job seeking, be sensitive to what your basic values are. The redundancy process is an opportunity to step back and ask yourself key questions about what do I need versus what do I want, and also consider when you were at your best. As you're looking back through your career, if you want to build the best career possible, then past performance is the best indicator of future performance. When you were last happiest and working in an effortless manner, try and think to yourself how you might replicate those circumstances in a future job role. And finally, on this sort of point, just go with the flow. Sometimes just letting go and letting events carry you, and believing that you will be looked after with the right frame of mind is often easiest.
Absolutely. I'm speaking with Peter Ure. He's a corporate motivational speaker and management consultant. More chat in a moment. It's 101.4. My name is Noel Bell, and I'm here till 2.